everyone. I'm Mira Keßler and I'm doing my PhD here in Bochum in Germany. Today we will look at differences in journalism trainings as part of media development. I will present my ideas for my research and some first interpretations for my analysis, which is still work in progress. So journalism trainings are discussed differently. On one side, journalism trainings are still considered as important tools for development. And on the other side, critical aspects are discussed, like their appropriateness or effectiveness. So, what gets criticized comes from problematic assumptions of development, for instance. Furthermore, it is also about, different country or culture-specific understandings of what journalism is for and how it needs to be done. Additionally, assumed postcolonial structures are discussed, and that means ongoing effects of colonialism and its further existing structures. So in my dissertation, I want to analyze how, first, different journalism norms and different living environments, and two, post-colonial critique play out in practice. My guiding questions here are, when the funding or trainers mainly come from the so-called West or global North, what impacts does this have on the trainers and the trainees as well? Are the trainings conducted and given on an eye level, or do the participants negotiate unconscious hierarchies among themselves? And when the trainers and trainees come from different working and living environments, how are these addressed and negotiated in the trainings? I just want to give you one example how differences can play a role. I was observing a training offered by a European media development organization between 2018 and 21. So they had invited journalists from different countries like Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East. The course was about how to create social change and respective campaigns in the trainees' countries. So one day the trainer showed an image film of a successful campaign on organ donation in Brazil. And one trainee from Somalia asked, so they donate their organs after death? And another one from West Africa said, that wouldn't work in Burkina Faso. A trainee from Libya noted that it wouldn't work in Libya either. And then a trainee from Nigeria added, when a person died, your body is sacred. I think it becomes clear here that the corresponding campaign was not imaginable in the trainees' context. What is also interesting here is the role of religious aspects that were discussed as the sacredness of bodies. I observed several other situations in this training where examples were shown, especially from the so-called Global North, and where the trainees explicitly expressed that they did not know the content or people. So, as the field of media development is based on this differentiation between the so-called Global South and North, I decided to analyze two organizations from the different parts of the world which offer journalism training. I followed an ethnographic approach as I wanted to see what is happening, what is actually happening on the ground. Between 2018 and 21, I stayed for 6 weeks at both the organizations. I exchanged with staff, I collected field material, such as in-house publications and training handbooks, and I also joined one training and wrote observation protocols and collected training material like worksheets and readers. I want to say here that the trainings are part of the very specific system of media development, which has its own history, dynamics, and discourses. And the journalism training and also the organization is embedded here. So the training as part of this system, is giving the participants this very specific system and conditions. And that means in the training, the participants, including the trainers as well as the trainees, are reacting to it. In doing so, through their interactions, context-specific attributions are made. So the question here is, how is this specific situation of the training constituted? And what does it do to the participants? So, it's not about the individuals, but it's about their very specific situation-bound interactions. What I want to state here that I understand the challenges of the trainers to give a good training, and that they are also part of a given system, like the trainees as well. So I'm just trying to understand, what is happening on the ground and where is it coming from to help to improve, the trainings and media development. So now I'm in the middle of my analysis of the observation protocols from the European organization. So far, I analyzed 1 week of a 3-week-long training with 21 participants. For the analysis, I use a qualitative reconstructive procedure, and this means that I don't start with a theoretical framework or defined concepts. Instead, I develop concepts of differences directly out of the data. So this openness to relevant aspects of the field itself follows the methodology of the grounded theory. So the analysis is an interpretive procedure. So it's not about describing scenes. And that means for every sense unit I'm analyzing, I'm asking myself, what does it represent? So to increase my theoretical sensitivity, I make comparisons. Through my analysis, I collected different concepts, for example, prompts and admonitions. I will show you very soon, which I later collected under the superordinate concept like in school, which is only named to work with, not a final result. So to make this designation comprehensible, I asked myself the following analytical questions. Where is this concept like school coming from? And why is it relevant for my research interest when it is about power asymmetries, inequalities, and different working and living environments? So I will give you now some examples of the prompts and admonitions. So as you can see on the left side, I collected, or I just give you here some examples of my single concepts. And I will give you now some examples out of my field protocol. So the training had to sign daily, the trainees had to sign daily and to take care of an attendance list. These lists were negotiated several times. So one day it was again about these lists, and trainer 1 made a joke that they got lost, and trainer 2 said to the trainees then, don't lose it. This can be interpreted as an admonition. And then she said something in the sense that people are like children. I also observed various calls the trainers made. So trainer 2 says when she wants to start the training, let's get started, and adds, admonishing me, no more talking. So also the trainers asked the trainees several times to pay attention and to come to the front to present the tasks they have worked on. And here at the front, there was a table at which the trainer sat at times, whose arrangement and function made it reminiscent of a teacher's desk. So for example, at the first day, the trainees had to come to that table where trainer 2 was sitting to make themselves a name tag with an adhesive strip. So the trainer tore off the strips and the trainees wrote their name on it with a pen and then stuck the strip to their chest and went back to their chairs. So what makes the comparison of the training to a school? The school has an educational mission. It is a disciplinary and a power space, following Michel Foucault. So it structures relationships between students and teachers as well as between students themselves. It shapes ways of perceiving, thinking, and behaving, and it finally initiates the view of oneself and generates self-images and self-understandings, which in turn tie the individuals to places and ranks, which impose attitudes and ways of acting. So I would say, this maybe also happened here in this situation, that it became a disciplinary and a power space, the training. So now somebody could say that every training situation is a bit like in school. Yes, they are both educational settings, but this is a specific educational setting from and for adults. So school-like settings within this, educational setting for adults are discussed in educational research precisely in the field of adult education. So here the educational setting for adults is differentiated from those for children, as in schools. So children's education does not build on prior knowledge, but adult education does. And furthermore, adults can decide for themselves what is relevant for them. So the principles, as you can see on the right side, of adult-oriented teaching and learning are the principles of participant orientation, experience orientation, life world orientation, use orientation, and the principles of competence orientation. And this approach is also reminiscent of the participatory approach of media development. So here you have the link again. So as I mentioned earlier, the dynamics are developing in a very specific context, and everyone's action, comes from these specific conditions. And unconscious and unreflecting hierarchies and inequalities could explain this dynamic of like school. I want to state again that this interpretation is still preliminary, but these are first interpretations that are worth thinking about. So it is important for me to say that research on differences is meant to be constructive, and at the end of the day, it is all about good relationships and fruitful exchanges. So the sensitivity to and awareness of differences can change the system, could enable to balance inequalities and to address diversity. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your feedback and to your response. Thank you very much.